Okay, we're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Floyd, Frazier, Cost, Bub, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $1,079.98. For software, who's going to speak on that?
Mr. Chair, I guess I will. This is a donation that was received, and it'll go towards the reimbursement of money from software purchase. So this is donated money.
Motion by Floyd, second by Bub. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is a request for appropriation amount of $2,250.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This was also a donation from Licking Memorial Health Systems. We have partnered with them to start a hygiene kit giveaway program for indigent probation offenders, and they've agreed to fund that program for this year. And she said we could petition her in future years to do the same. So we're just wanting to get the money in place so we can start purchasing the kits.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Frazier, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr.
How many kits does this provide?
It should provide 150, but if we are good at purchasing the items, I think we could get 190.
And do you have a demand for 190, or is it more than that?
That should be, we've never had a program such as this, and it's going to basically have 10 different items in them. Starter items like toothpaste, toothbrush, deodorant. Some of our indigent offenders typically are homeless. They don't have products like this, so this will be a good start for them to start using those products. And we've partnered with Licking Memorial because we can show that folks that don't use products like this can have ultimately health problems down the road, so they're on board with this type of an initiative. So.
Excellent.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation amount of $1,565.
This is in regards to our probation improvement and incentive grant. We were able to see that we were going to be short in our health insurance account, so we did a budget revision with the state. They've approved our budget revision, so we're just now trying to get the money in the appropriate account, so we have that in place.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Floyd, second by Frazier. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $2,700.
I'm not exactly sure why this is on here, but this was from a contingency transfer, but this is for replacement of some SCADA software at the water plant out of our equipment replacement fund. So, you know why that got on here? That really shouldn't even be on here. I didn't see that earlier, but I just saw it now. So,
All righty.
do we need to pass this through here?
Since it's here, we might as well do it.
Yeah, just in case.
All
I'll
right.
make a motion.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Well, we need it, but it's a contingency thing. But,
I have a motion by Frazier,
Second.
second by Floyd. Questions other than why it's here?
Do you need it?
yeah, we need the money.
Okay.
I think here's the explanation. I believe he thought that it should not need legislation. It should be able to just be transferred from one account to the other without legislation. So We'll just do the legislation just in case. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $17,600.
Good evening. This is an appropriation for the termination of sick leave for our Assistant Tax Administrator that's retiring as of November 30th.
Second.
I have a motion by Bub, second by Cost. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $20,000.
Hello.
Hello.
We transferred these funds into the general fund from the clerk's accounts, and now we're just wanting to get them appropriated so we can begin remodeling an office on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
Motion?
Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Questions or discussion?
How long is the renovation going to take?
I don't know because I haven't gotten into it that far. I wanted to make sure our funds are in place before I contract for any
Smart
services.
move.
Yes, it is. I think that's the prudent business plan.
so too.
Yeah, I'm hoping it will be less than 3 months.
Excellent.
And it's a smaller office up on the 3rd floor, not the large clerk's office. Okay.
Right. So we already transferred the money from another account into the general fund and then...
It's been deposited into the general fund.
Oh, okay, just like a donation almost. Okay.
Exactly.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $284.91.
Good evening. This is just the reappropriation of the funds for sale of gov deals. We had some items sold on gov deals back into our vehicle maintenance fund.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Floyd, second by Frazier. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in an amount of $34,400.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a retirement in the police department, and these are all contractual items.
That's not on our sheet.
It's the one, it's section 9. I think you skipped over section 8.
Oh, sorry. That's the way it was in my packet. Sorry. Yes, a termination sick. It's right after it.
I see it.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Floyd, second by Frazier. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
The next one is a request for appropriation in the amount of $300,000.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. This is money to put over into our insurance investment account. We have right now $179,000 in that account. The next bill we get will be next week, and it's not going to cover it.
So where's this money coming from?
What's this show on here?
It says the general fund, but where's $300,000?
It's going to be part of the unappropriated balance as soon as we certify it. It's part of the income tax over collection. So $300,000 has been requested for the health insurance account. And then a little later on, you'll be seeing something in the amount of $400,000 for workers' comp payments for, I believe it's 2016.
So we've already recertified 50,000, now we've recertified an additional 300, and then there's another 400,000 to come.
Right, and then some of these other items that you've discussed tonight, like W's and things like that, that will also be recertified.
Right.
This is all things that we didn't know about when we initially did the budget. It's over collections or donations of things that have come in. We recertify quite often because things just come up during the year that were not anticipated for the budget. These are...
Well, but when you say we recertified numerous times throughout the year, are you talking about just redoing our budget with these appropriations and things, or?
When the budget is done, we certify in the County Budget Commission the amount of revenue that we will receive.
Correct.
And that is what we're allowed to spend. So during the course of the year, if somebody donates money or for some reason money has come into the treasury that is not anticipated, in order for it to be appropriated, we have to recertify.
Okay.
So all it does is just change our appropriation for it.
Okay.
We also, from time to time, will decertify because you cannot certify more than you're realistically getting.
Right.
So we monitor that and make the adjustments throughout the course of the year.
From this point on, is there any way that I could get notification if we recertify due to the overcollections of taxes?
Sure.
Because that leaves an unappropriated balance, which tells me that I don't know what the unappropriated balance is at any given time.
Well, it's a moving target, actually, because things happen daily. But I think this will be discussed probably at the budget review meeting.
Okay.
So, I think...
Well, the little things like the donations are not, I mean, we know it's just a flow through, but I'm talking about recertifying $750,000 of over collections into our general fund, and I knew about 50,000 of it.
Well, we only recertify when the money's to be appropriated. If Mr. Buskirk wasn't asking for this appropriation, we would not be recertifying. We only recertify when it needs to be spent. Other words, it just stays where it is.
Very good.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Floyd, second by Frazier. Any further questions or discussion?
Will this take us through the end of the year, or is there any projection?
Through the end of next year, actually. The Bureau has changed how they do it now. It used to be you paid in arrears, now you pay in advance.
Okay.
And then there'll be some adjustments to this once they get it, and we'll probably get some sort of a refund, but that's how they do it now.
So this additional 300,000 is not due to the fact that we...
I'm sorry, I was talking about workers' comp. The 300,000 should do us to the end of the year.
Okay, and this is due to claims experience, and then also we kind of knew with the last year's holidays that were provided that we were going to kind of be short anyway. Is that correct?
I'm not sure how holidays entered into it for sure, but yes, we did do that last year.
Based upon the report that we were given at the beginning of the year, actually it was probably around April time frame, that we were in jeopardy with our health insurance, and we had to make an adjustment at that point.
You're right.
Because of the premium holidays that we gave last year.
Okay.
So this is just an extension of that, is
Yes.
what I'm saying. Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Green.
Yeah, I'm curious, what does the insurance, who does the insurance cover, or what does it cover, and who is it paid to? Just for clarification.
It's a medical insurance for the city employees that choose to sign up and pay for it.
And who is the insurer that it's paid to, or?
Well, we work through MedBen. They're our third-party vendor, if you will. And then there's Health Reach. And I'm trying to think, I don't have the city insurance, so I'm trying to remember what the name of the other one is, but there's two companies. that actually provide the services.
Just to further explain, the city's health insurance program is a self-insured program. So basically, we pay for claims ourselves up to a certain dollar amount. And then anything over a certain cap, that's where MedBend comes in and they pay any additional, but we pay some premiums for that, but it's not near as much if we paid for premiums for first dollar. We self-insure for a certain dollar limit within the city. And so it may be, part of this is due to claims, not really due to premiums.
Right.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. I do not have sheets on the rest of this
For
stuff.
1691.
Yeah. Additional sheets.
Right there.
Oh, gotcha. Next item on the agenda. A request for appropriation in the amount of $21,657.81. First item on that. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute.
There you go.
All right, this is one for $77,563.86.
I have $3,017. Yeah.
Hold on. No, it's the total amount.
Section one.
Hold on, let me see. Hold on a minute. Let me get, she's got my sheet.
These are all workers' comp when you add them up. They have to be charged to the different departments.
Okay, so I think your first one is right.
Yeah.
Every one of them is
Every one of them.
317,000.
Yeah, the total. Okay, so the first item will be $317,361.78. And this is for,
It's our 2017 premium for workers' comp.
right,
We'll pay the last day of 2016. Or sometime in the end of December.
are there any questions on the accounts that start with 100.101.5127 and go all the way through 100.602.5127?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Bub, second by Floyd. These are all the workers' comp adjustments. This the first of the few. Any questions or discussion on this?
Do the account numbers have significance?
Pardon?
Do you know why they're broken down?
Each of the departments has to pay their share.
That's
It
broken
has
down
to
by-
show it that way. That's like if we did get a discount back, then each of the departments get their portion of the discount back.
And the way that our budget is structured, payroll is an item on our budget, and then other expenses are another item. We total them, but when we cross across lines, we have to do a separate one for each one. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
The next one for worker, this is another workers' comp, $21,657.81.
Motion.
Motion by Bob, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0. The next one is a total amount of $46,419.13.
Motion.
Motion by Frazier,
Second.
second by Floyd. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Next one is workers' comp for $21,484.34.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, second by Frazier. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Next workers' comp is $2,885.97.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Frazier, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. And finally, workers' comp in the amount of $2,885.97.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Frazier, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. And with that, this committee stands adjourned. Next up, I believe, is streets.
Okay, I'm going to call the street committee to order. Members present are Hall, Blake, Rath, Roletta, Johnson, Marmee, and Floyd. We are here to discuss Ordinance 16-42, an ordinance vacating portions of alleys as shown on the plat of Charles Miller's edition as recorded in Plat Book 2, page 129 of the Licking County Plat Records. Said alleys are located between 226 and 232 East Main Street. Mr. Moorhead.
Yes, I had been to street committee a couple of months ago with this request. The property owners submitted the required petition form for this alley vacation. We've sent it around the notification and for comments from other city departments, police, fire, utilities. No one has any negative comments about vacating the alley. So before you is the ordinance to vacate the alley. Because all of the adjacent property owners signed the petition, there is not a requirement to pass a resolution of intent nor to publish the action in the newspaper. So the ordinance is before you if you wish to move forward with it.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Marmee. Second by Mr. Johnson. Any questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And service is next.
All right. Welcome to the Service Committee. Those present are myself, Rath, Cost, Frazier, Floyd, and Bub. Up first, consider Resolution 16-92, ODOT preliminary legislation for bridge inspection program services, including but not limited to bridge load rating calculations, scholar assessments, bridge inspections, and fracture critical plan development. Mr. Moorhead.
Yes, thank you. This is a program that ODOT instituted 2 years ago where basically they are funding the inspection of all our bridges within the city, and we'd like to take advantage of that again. And this would be for the years 2017 to 2019. ODOT will hire the engineering consultant with the bridge inspection qualifications, and we'll coordinate with that consultant for whatever info he needs. But basically the consultant will do the inspections, file them with us, file them with ODOT, and meet the federal highway regulations. So any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Reason for expediting? Why does this need expedited?
That comes from ODOT, so I know they are trying to finalize the program in November here. So.
Okay.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bob.
Second.
Seconded by Floyd. Any questions from the committee members?
Mr. Chair. So
Frazier.
after the inspection, they compile the results, give them back to you, and then you prioritize it for next year, or what's the steps after the inspection?
We inspect all the bridges, but yeah, we have we kind of have our priority list of the ones that need repair or replacement right now. This is just an annual inspection. These inspections are done every year, and so if there are items that pop up that we can repair, we do that. Our list of bridges that we're going to be working on for the next 4 or 5 years is already kind of set right now, so we don't expect any surprises in the meantime, but occasionally there's some items that pop up on the inspection that we do need to repair. So.
Excellent.
Any other questions from the committee? Any other questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0 on to today. Thank you, Mr. Moorhead.
Thank you.
Up next, consider Resolution 1693, supporting the Ohio Department of Transportation for the designation of state and U.S. bicycle routes crossing Ohio, including U.S. Bike Route 50 and State Bike Route 65 in the city of Newark. Mr. Moorhead again.
Again, this is a piece of legislation that came from ODOT. I think last year you passed a piece of legislation designating U.S. Bike Route 50, which runs east and west through Newark. Now there's the proposal to designate a state Bike Route 65, which would be coming from the south from Heath. I had given you a map in your packet there. Basically, it comes up Forey Avenue, goes across Grant Street, up William Street, all the way up to the YMCA at West Church Street, and then jumps on the bike path from there, heading to the west. So this is a new initiative by ODOT, and you see some of the results. We already have some of the U.S. Bike Route 50 signs posted out on Main Street and so forth, and Church Street. So if you got any other questions on this, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
So is this going to utilize primarily roadways?
Yes.
Exclusively roadways?
Not exclusively. When it jumps on the bike path up behind the Y, of course that's right on the path itself, but generally through town, through the center of town, it's on the existing roadways.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
So,
Mr. Frazier.
Mr. Chair, as far as what ODOT, so they contribute 100% of engineering or of designation or paving, what all does their contribution entail?
There's no financial commitment from us on this at all. ODOT will designate the route, start showing the routes on their mapping and so forth. They'll ask us to show the routes on our mapping at some point when it's actually official. And I believe the last time they actually provided us with the signage on the State Route 50. So I would assume that we'll get signage from ODOT for the State Route 65, State Bike Route 65 signs. So.
I'll make a motion.
Motion
I'll
by Floyd.
second.
Seconded by Frazier.
And as Mr. Chair, I have additional questions. As far as when it comes into town, are we designating bike lanes on the roadways in order to help expedite this and protect bicyclists?
We're not doing that at this point. It'll just be a signage type thing. ODOT has driven these routes throughout the cities and the counties where they're going and find them to be lower traffic routes that are not the state route for actual roadway traffic. So not to say they're off the beaten path, but they're lower traffic volume. So in ODOT's opinion, this is the type of route that they want to designate as a state bike route. Well, quite honestly, we don't have room on a lot of those routes to make an additional bike lane. So,
exactly.
And so they're typically in the existing lanes.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes on full council with a vote of 5-0. Up next
Thank you.
will be resolution number 16-94, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to advertise for bids and enter into contract for certain essential supplies for various departments of the City of Newark, Ohio. Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an annual thing that we ask for the authority to go out to bid for some items that we'll be purchasing for the use in the various departments over the calendar year 2017.
Second. Motion by Cost, seconded by Bub. Questions by Frazier.
I should just,
Give him a minute, he'll come up with one.
I can get one, but
Any other questions for the committee members? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. That motion carries with a vote of 5-0, sent on to full council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes, and I believe that concludes the Service Committee meeting. We'll stand adjourned. Up next will be Economic Development Committee.
All right, we'll call this meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. Members present are Mr. Johnson, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Rath, Mr. Cost, and myself. We have two pieces of legislation on our agenda. The first are two items on our agenda. The first is more of a presentation and an update, and we do have a piece of legislation after that. Mr. Moorhead is at the podium for the purpose of this meeting is to receive a copy of the proposal from the Army Corps of Engineers to raise the levee along the South Fork of the Licking River and to receive an update on the status of that project. So I want to thank our city engineer for coming tonight and look forward to this presentation.
Thanks. You know, the description there is not really accurate because we're not getting a proposal from the Corps of Engineers. So let me tell you, though, what we do have and what I've sent you. I sent into your packet, in the economic development packet, some documents that we've been corresponding back and forth with the Corps of Engineers and with our design consultant from Burgess and Nipel. Basically, if you look at this map, first of all, it's a flood map. And the red line is where the existing levee is, down on the south end, on the north side of the South Fork of the Licking River, and then it goes north along the west side of the North Fork of the Licking River, and then also goes north along the east side of Raccoon Creek over off of Calburn and 6th Street. So the area that is north of the levee, kind of enclosed by that levee, as you see in blue, is all in the floodplain, some in the floodway of the FEMA's administered flood insurance program. So the goal of the project is to try to get some of that, if not all of that area, out of the floodplain for redevelopment or for even increased development in that area. So we've been working with the Corps back and forth, actually on 3 different projects. One, of course, is the replacement of the bridge down at Ohio Street. And these projects all interconnect together to this proposal to try to reduce the floodplain down in that area. So the Ohio Street Bridge comes into play, of course. The improvement of the levee to be able to be certified to a level that would allow FEMA to reduce the floodplain is kind of the second part of the project. And then the third part of the project is that we've received funding through ODOT via a Transportation Alternatives Program grant to put a multi-use path along the north side of the South Fork of the Licking River down along the levee. So all these things interconnect, and we had a meeting actually a couple of weeks ago with the Corps of Engineers. They came into town. We've had correspondence back and forth with them several times, but they came into town and we had a really productive meeting with them. Just to step through what we talked about, attachment 1 was another drawing that our consultant had put together that just kind of maps out the major items along the levees. There's the National Drive stop log gate closure, the South 2nd Street stop log gate closures. Both of those would need some repair if we, in the project we're contemplating here. And then, of course, the High Street Bridge replacement. Attachment 2, that's in your packet, shows the 4 areas of the levee that are deficient. So it's not the entire levee. There are 4 areas on the levee that are too low. Basically, the top of the levee is not high enough to provide the 100-year flood protection according to FEMA. So, the good news is that when we started looking at this project, we felt that it was probably a several $million project. We don't have a cost estimate yet, but seeing those 4 small areas makes us more confident that it's an affordable project to do, given the fact that most of the work on those portions of the levee is just from a few inches to just a couple of feet of raising of the levee that would need to be done. So, and attachment 3, I guess, that's in your package, gives you an idea of the 2 different ways that we're talking about raising the levee. So again, as I said, back a couple of weeks ago, our friends at the Corps of Engineers were here for an inspection. We had a great sit-down meeting with them. Steve Spagna is the Levee Safety Program Manager. He was actually here at the meeting. We talked to him about what some of our design considerations were, and got head nods and advice on how to proceed with the project. So it was very helpful from that standpoint, given that the guys that are actually going to approve our plan were sitting there right at the desk with us. So we walked the levees and had a good correspondence. So basically where we are at this point is our design consultant, Burgess & Nyepel, is going back and look at some of the modeling that was done to create the floodplains. And there is a possibility that there could be some errors in that modeling, and we may spend some additional money to do remodeling of the stream down there, which could bring us to the point where no actual construction is needed, given that the levees are, 6 inches to a foot too low. So if the modeling is inaccurate and we can do better modeling to a high level of confidence, the Corps of Engineers and FEMA will accept that. So we're going to look at that right now. We're looking at the modeling. If the modeling can't be tweaked and into an approvable format, then we will move forward with the actual construction and the design and the construction to raise the levee in those 4 areas to make it so that FEMA would accept the changes that would bring the areas back out of the floodplain. So that, of course, would be a little bit longer term process. We're probably talking, and it's all interconnected with like I said, with the multi-use path and a High Street Bridge. A High Street Bridge is scheduled for construction in 2018 right now. So it'll probably be the next 2 years working through the issues with the Corps of Engineers and FEMA, restudying that modeling, and then if the modeling isn't successful, going through the design work. So as I say, we're probably 2 years until we could see any results in changes in the flood maps. is about as short as I can make it and get everything out there. So if you've got any questions, let me know. It's a very complicated issue, and it's as anything with ODOT, FEMA, and the Corps of Engineers would be involved, it does not move quickly.
Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. I want to publicly thank you and John for your work on this. This is, to me, I think that there's, we're talking about getting people so that they don't have to have flood insurance. This particular neighborhood, when we can get them out of the floodplain, then nonprofits such as Habitat for Humanity will look at this and develop in this area. And so this is very important. So I appreciate the work that both of you have done behind the scenes and now coming forward to give us an update. I am curious, though, with the 4 areas that you identified in attachment 2, if those improvements were done, will it be the entire, how would that affect the floodplain? How would this map look after those changes were completed?
After the changes were completed, the design would be, first of all, the design would be sent to FEMA for what's known as a conditional letter of map revision. Basically, FEMA looks at the design and says, yep, if it's built according to that, we agree, we would revise the maps. We would then, with the conditional letter of map revision, go forward with the construction. We would build the improvements that are needed, then would have to go back and actually give a final submittal back to FEMA and say, look, we built what we told you we were going to build, and then at that point, that is when FEMA could give the final approval and make the actual change in the maps, in the floodplain maps.
So would you project that a majority of the south end would then become out of that? Would that?
That's what we're hoping for, and that's what the additional modeling will show us.
Okay. Ms. Ryan?
I've got a couple questions, but first off, sorry, but what is modeling? What is modeling?
Modeling?
Yeah, I don't understand what that means.
Well, it's engineering calculations to calculate the level, basically what's the level of the river going to be under certain storm conditions, and how far, when you get to that height, how far is it going to extend out onto the land. So it's a mix of calculations, mapping, survey work, all put together to give basically a 3D view of what that water is going to do.
Okay. And then when you talk about raising the embankment on your diagram here on this, are you raising that with earth? Or are you raising that with concrete?
Earth is what we were talking about at this point, trying to do it as economically as possible. Yeah.
Is this the same group from the Buckeye Lake area? Could we use the bottom of Buckeye Lake to raise this?
No, that's bad material.
Mr. Frazier?
So let's say they do the modeling, they come back, we don't have to do any of the levee work. Do we just do the walking path and then we do the bridge? Is that the best case scenario?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so the walking path is just on the north bank of the South Fork, right?
On the north bank of the South Fork, correct. You thought about that before you said it, didn't you?
I'm looking at the map, so I'm cheating.
Yeah.
And then, are we waiting to get through all of the modeling to even plan that out? Is that what you're waiting to hear?
No, we've actually got a bike path laid out there, and we had some, we actually went through the design of that with the Corps folks when they were here. They gave us some ideas how we ought to tweak it to get their approval of it. So we're making those changes right now, and then we're going to take that design and plug it into the modeling to make sure that it all fits together appropriately.
And is there plans to connect it with any of the existing bike paths or anything like that?
It will, the path right now will connect, we'll go from South 2nd Street, it'll come up to street level at South 2nd Street, and then back down on the levee, on the shelf, kind of the shelf of the levee, to the east, and then come back up to connect to the Ohio Street Bridge. On the Ohio Street Bridge, we will have a wider than normal walkway. It's not actually a sidewalk, but it's basically a path on the new bridge that will connect over to the east side of the bridge and connect to the path that's already there that runs up along the north side, or the east side of the North Fork.
And that's going east from 2nd Street, but I know that there's, working with the Licking Park District, there are some preliminary discussions about going west. Going from 2nd Street west along and into the FOP property and then over to connect it over to the old bridge.
News to me.
Director Williams told me he had a meeting with you. I'm sorry if I...
Oh, I didn't meet with him.
Okay. Bob Williams?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess from the Park District, the discussion
else.
I had with him was that there was plans to go from, even from what Brian described, to go from west along the levee to talk to the FOP property, have a bike trail going along the FOP property, and then behind Tectum to go over the old railroad bridge behind Tectum to go even further that way.
Okay.
That doesn't ring a bell.
I wasn't in the meeting, so...
Okay, all right. So there is...
Nick may have been in our office. Nick Schultz may have been in that.
So the bike path you're talking about is from South 2nd Street to Ohio Bridge?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think this is exciting. I mean, not only just for a bike path, but just for the, again, for the benefits of getting out of the insurance for the property owners, and then also for Habitat for Humanity to start building here and have some other developments in this neighborhood. So thank you for your work. So,
Yep. Yeah, definitely. The benefit is the reduced floodplain if we can make that happen. It's right now. I mean, I've personally dealt with several properties that people have wanted to do additions or whatever to their house down in that area, and when you tell them that the new addition needs to be raised 3 to 4 to 5 foot above the level of the existing house, it's just not practical. And how do you make that connection inside the house? So being able to get changes in the floodplain would be really instrumental in redevelopment down there.
Mr. Rath and Mr. Green.
Just a point of clarification. Mr. Blake mentioned flood insurance a couple times. Correct me if I'm wrong, but those people living in the floodplain now are ineligible for flood insurance, and by eliminating the floodplain, that would make them eligible. Is that correct?
No, they're not only eligible, they're required to have flood insurance now if they have a mortgage.
All right, I had that backwards.
Yeah.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I understand the potential benefit to residents in the area. Curious that you don't have any projections about what yet at this point, what streets that might include that would be eliminated from the floodplain?
No, not yet, but best case scenario, it's basically everything north of the levee, which right now the floodplain goes almost up to the railroad here, like at Railroad Street.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So you're looking at everything in that red area coming out of the house.
Okay, I was particularly concerned about the garden at 6th Street, for instance, in terms of it's presently in the floodplain, and so actually is the other garden on Western Avenue, and how those things might be affected, and also...
Well, this won't affect Western Avenue, but it'll help 6th Street. So.
Okay, and also whether there has been any expressed corporate interest in seeing the floodplain change, altered? Do you know about anything?
No, I've not had any corporate interest at all. This is a city-led initiative, and this was actually identified back when we started the stormwater utility as a project that we wanted to undertake at some point. So a couple of years ago, we started through the with the engineering consultant to start identifying, what's the scope of this whole project. And after the survey work was done and we were able to compare what crazy, but FEMA's requirements are not the same as the Corps of Engineer requirements. So when we were able to take the survey information and compare, okay, does the levee meet Corps of Engineer requirements? Yes, it does. Does the levee meet FEMA requirements? No, it doesn't. And to see that difference was only a foot and a half, as opposed to several foot of fill on top of the levee, that was a game changer.
And David, I just know, as far as interest, I know, the cities have used money to tear down homes. We have a lot of vacant lots in the south end. Yet, as Brian expressed, and then as I have meetings with Habitat Humanity, with that floodplain being there, even Habitat won't build there. So once we can get rid of that, this is going to be huge. So this is going to make a big difference in getting some housing development and things going on back in that area. So, any other, Mr. Frazier?
Brian, since you're an expert in all things, how much does that flood insurance typically cost a homeowner? Do you have any idea?
I've heard anywhere from about $800 a year up to $2,500 a year, and it seems to be increasing. The flood insurance program has found that they were not self-sufficient, so they're increasing the rates to make themselves more self-sufficient, and maybe our resident insurance expert back there might have more input on that. So,
thank you.
I can just give you the 100,000 level on the National Flood Insurance Program. It's mandated that flood insurance is required. The thing is, he's approximately right about the cost of it. Basically, whatever you're paying in homeowners is going to be that and more if you're going to insure it 100% the value of your replacement cost. Even if you insure it 100% of your replacement cost, only the contents covered above the flood plain are covered. So even if you have insurance for your contents, the basement and first floor usually are not covered at all. So you're paying all that money for not a lot. And as far as coverage, it's a false protection in my opinion. Most people who cover for flood insurance, they only cover it for the mortgage amount. So as their mortgage decreases, they decrease the amount of coverage that they have in the flood coverage. And it's still very expensive, and it does continue to go up double-digit rates at percentage every year, just because of the cost of it. And they're really scrutinizing on it. They also are requiring now, the National Flood Program, in addition to having the flood insurance, you have to have a flood certificate, an elevation certificate done, in which you have to pay for, which means you're going to have the surveyor come out and do that, do the certificate, which by itself would cost you $800. So.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? Okay, thank you very much, Brian.
all right, thanks.
Our piece of legislation for this committee's agenda is to consider ordinance number 1643, in Newark declaring certain improvements to parcels of real property in the city of Newark which are necessary for the further development of the Baker Evans project to be for a public purpose, describing the purpose public infrastructure improvements to be made to directly benefit the respective parcels, authorizing agreements with the respective property owners affected by such public infrastructure improvement, and with the city of Newark District and the Career and Technology Education Centers of Licking County, establishing the Baker Evans Tax Increment Equivalent Fund and declaring emergency. Director Motters at the podium.
I think that pretty much says it all right there, doesn't it?
Can you read it again?
No, good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm here today to present the legislation that would create a TIF on the new Kroger Marketplace. This TIF would provide funds to complete the Evans and Baker Boulevard streets and to build the necessary bridge over the Log Pond Run diversion ditch. I was going to offer a little bit of history of where we're at with Evans and Baker. If you go back to about 2004, the city worked with the school system to put in Evans Boulevard in order that they could have access to the new Legend and Liberty schools. At that time, I believe Mayor Bain was in office, and the city council with him at that time made that investment in Evans Boulevard of city funds. But their intent was that it not be a cul-de-sac street. Their intent was that the street would eventually be completed as a connector to the Baker Boulevard road that is in place as well, which also then gives you access to North 21st Street and all the businesses that reside there. For the past 10 to 12 years, there's not been any funding available in order to complete this roadway project. So that brings us to today. We really have a tremendous opportunity before us to generate a funding source that will allow the city to complete this roadway project. The TIF we are proposing would capture the taxes on the improvement cost being invested by Kroger. It's vitally important that we point this out, and that is that this is the only window of opportunity that exists to take advantage of creating a TIF on these improvement costs. It's the only way that we can generate funds, because there just isn't any other property out there that could be TIF'd commercially that would provide the necessary funds to do this project. And it has to be done in 2016. If we do not take advantage of doing this TIF by the end of the year, we cannot go back and retroactively recoup or TIF those improvement costs that Kroger is investing, which is about $18 million, is what they propose to us. Brian Moorhead said it very well when we had discussion on this, and he said that this may be the last chance we get to generate funding for the city to complete this project. Service Director David Rhodes, Brian Moorhead, and myself have met directly with the Newark City School Boards and also the CTEC school boards, and presented a TIF to them. It was a 20-year TIF, 100% distribution, and it includes a 25% compensation package back to the schools. And I've sent some information out to all of you in the email. TIFs are a little bit complicated, but basically Brian had estimated that the project would probably be in the $3 to $3.5 million price range preliminarily. There are no final designs to cost estimate on at this time. So taking those numbers into consideration, we chose a TIF that would generate about $2.6 million of the 3.5 approximate that we'll need to complete it. That would leave the burden for us to find grants or capital improvement funds, and who knows, maybe some private-public partnership money, such as what was done to get the Whitesfield AstroTurf installed here recently. But we would need to take care of that. But we thought that was a fair trade-off, because schools should certainly be entitled to some of this money, and that's where we thought that 25% compensation would be beneficial to them as well. So all that being said, we did present to the school boards. The Newark City School Board really is the main driver that has to accept this TIF or reject it. The power is in their hands. They are hoping to vote this week. I'm waiting to hear back from the school board president, Tom Blind, to see if he can pull everybody together and have that vote take place. David and I and Brian also have met with city key stakeholders, such as Dan DeLauder, Sarah Wallace, Steve Lehman, Jerry McLean, regarding this TIF, and I've outlined the details of it, and all are highly in favor of seeing this TIF being approved and implemented. Dan DeLauder thought enough to take time out of his valuable time and out of his schedule to speak before the Newark City School Board with us the other evening. And he made a pretty impassioned plea that he felt that this is really something that is an exceptional economic development opportunity for the schools, for the residents of Newark, for North 21st Street businesses, and also Kroger. because this completion of Evans and Baker is going to bring you right into the back door of Kroger Marketplace. And it's very important, I think, to stress that Sarah Wallace, as chairman of the Evans Foundation, which owns all that land that is yet to be, I'm going to use the word developed in the future. It's all that vacant land back behind Kroger and to the north of the Evans Athletic Facility. The Evans Foundation owns that. And she feels very strongly that this TIF is vital to the future academic and recreational development, because that's what they see happening. They don't see commercial or residential development taking place on this property. So again, you don't have any opportunities to maybe TIF that type of development. They see this as academic and recreational projects that will go into that vacant land. So, in closing, I say she is wholeheartedly in support of this TIF. So that's my presentation to you all. And I'd be glad to entertain questions, comments, concerns.
Mr. Rath. Motion by Mr. Rath.
Second.
Second by Mr. Frazier. Questions, comments from committee? Mr. Frazier.
$2.6 million over 2 years, or over 20 years, or?
20 years, yes.
So it goes to Newark City Schools for a vote. Does it go to CTEC to a vote as well?
CTEC only approves the compensation agreement. If you look at the paperwork with the ordinance, there's the ordinance itself that establishes the TIF. There's Exhibit A, which outlines or shows the 3 parcels that make up the Kroger Marketplace property. And then Exhibit B is the school compensation agreement. And the only part that CTEC has to approve is the compensation agreement. And I got that approval from CTEC on Friday of last week.
Excellent.
So now we're just waiting for Newark City School Board.
Any other questions or comments?
I got plenty. I got another one.
Oh.
So, as far as the location of the TIF, is it just on the block of Kroger's, or is it behind where the Evans property is?
It is only the 3 parcels that make up Kroger Marketplace. Best I could show you or tell you, remember there's like a retention pond area?
Yep.
That is a parcel. Where the store area is, the bulk of the store, the parking lot, and I believe out where the gas station facilities, that's like another parcel. And then the 3rd parcel, just a small one, which just is to the north of like where the gas station is, but yet east of where the retention pond is. So it's 3 group parcels that make up what we're doing there. So there is nothing that's being TIF'd back on the vacant ground.
And then as far as downtown development and TIFs associated with that, is that kind of a future-facing TIF that we're looking to do, or a special financing thing? Because the main thing why we're trying to capture this Kroger TIF is because of the level of development that we're doing. And you see the Licking County Memorial Health System building going up downtown from a vacant lot. Is there a reason why we're not TIFing that?
Don't have an answer for you on that.
Is it something that we could do by the end of this year?
Probably not, due to the time constraints we're working on for this. And we've been working on this TIF for about 18 months, to be honest with you. That began with preliminary conversations with the school boards. As we saw that Kroger was moving toward making a decision on the property with Meyer. And then we've had conversations intermittently with the school board treasurers and superintendents, and then ultimately we meet with the full board, which is where we got to here in the fall. Okay.
Director Motter, just correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the cost of the road is roughly about $3 million, correct?
Brian's estimating with best he can.
It's about $3 to
$3.5 million. Baker, Evans, and the bridge over the diversion ditch. Okay.
And so the purpose of the TIF is to take the money that is generated from Kroger to specifically put it back into the road. I mean, that's why you do a TIF, is you want to capture that money to put it right there locally.
Right.
So something downtown wouldn't. I mean, we just want those monies going to the general fund, right?
Correct. And I do want to make this clear because there's been some confusion in the press when this first came out. Because Kroger paid $3 million for the property, that established the tax basis. Okay. Myers was paying taxes on $2.5 million. So the fact that Kroger paid a bit more, $450,000 more than what the Kroger was being taxed, the schools, the libraries, MRDD, the senior citizens levy, all those entities that get distributions from the property taxes will continue to receive the same amount they were when Myers was in business. So what happens is there's an acquisition cost, but we're capturing the improvement cost. The new store, the parking lot, the gas station facility, that's what we're capturing. I think that's very, very important because that message was not sent out in the paper. It actually read all. The city of Newark was going to take all the tax money and not going to the schools, not going to the library, not going to the other levies and entities. And that created my phone ringing and my neighbors very upset with me recently. And I had to squelch that a little bit. But it is important. So then on top of that, because they're going to maintain that same level of funding, then we're going to give a 25% compensation back to the Newark City School Board District and the CTEC School Board District. So they're going to actually receive a little bit more. Actually, it could be as much as 50% more. We don't have the exact figures, but it's going to be more than they were receiving when Myers was in business with this TIF. So it seems like a win-win-win all the way around for this. It truly does. It's really a unique opportunity. If this hadn't taken place with Kroger, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation.
Can you give us the scenario of committee passes on to full council, council votes on it, but the school district does not approve their plan? What happens at that
Sure.
point?
If the school board does not approve the current TIF, the city of Newark still has the option of going to a fallback, which is a 75% distribution over 10 years TIF. And we can do that with the option of compensating the schools again to a certain percentage or having zero compensation back to the schools. At zero compensation, the numbers that the attorney shared with me, we would realize about $1.6 million, not the 2.6 that we're shooting for. And if we do present a compensation package of 25% like we are offering now, that number drops to $1 million. So now we're a third or less than reaching our goal of trying to fund this project. So we're very, very hopeful that the school district will come on board with us and help us work together, much as the way we're doing throughout the entire rest of the city. And that's the way we approach this. When I say we, I'm talking about the mayor, Service Director David Rhodes, myself, Brian Moorhead's been very, very involved. And we gave a lot of thought to this. What is best for the citizens of Newark? What works best for the school districts? And ultimately, what's best for the citizens of Newark? And this seemed to be a good solution. Again, Dan DeLauder is very much in favor of this. Sarah Wallace is in favor of this. And Sarah Wallace, of all people, again, being the caretaker of all that ground out there, she is in the planning process of trying to put a master plan together for what's taking place. And she would not be able to proceed unless there are roads in place to take care of some of these additional projects. And again, we're talking academic and recreational type projects. So there's big things happening. Just like you look around this city that you see around us. Who would have ever guessed 5-10 years ago that we would be seeing Newark looking the way it does today? And I think we have an opportunity to do the same thing out here on this particular piece of property, and it's only going to happen if we get some funds that we can complete those roads out there.
Any other questions, comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? Mr. Green.
At the risk of sounding very ignorant, you said $2.6 million over 20 years. Is that right?
Yes.
So does that mean $130,000 a year? That's 1/20th of 2.6 million.
I can tell you exactly if you give me a moment. Net service payments to the city would be about $170,000 a year.
$170,000.
Yes, actually $171,641 and 56 cents.
And the proposed 25% that the Board of Ed, the Education Department would get, is out of that amount?
No, it is not, Mr. Green. It's actually, there's a total of about $42,000, and that gets dispersed between Newark City and CTEC. Newark gets the lion's share because they're at 70% distribution. I think CTEC's at about a 5%, 6% distribution. So roughly the numbers come out to about $39,000 a year for Newark City schools and about $2,800 for CTEC. And again, that's over and above what they're already be getting, which was the same as when Myers was doing business.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Director Motter. That concludes the business economic development. Personnel is next.
Okay, it's 6:45. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Doug Marmee, Curtis Johnson, Alex Roletta, D. Hall. First item on this evening's agenda is to consider Ordinance 16-44, amending the physician classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the Licking County Municipal Clerk of Courts by changing the number of deputy clerks and setting compensation. Therefore, Marcia Phelps is here to speak to this. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm here just to simply say that we need to increase the authorization of our positions in the clerk's office. It would be for this purpose exclusively of work that is being done through the computer funds. It would not be general fund dollars. It would be computer fund dollars that would pay for the position. The position would only last as long as the work lasts.
Any questions or comments from this committee? Anyone from the audience? Dee, go ahead.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? This job only lasts as long as the work?
I mean, the work or the funds would be available. Coming from the computer fund, I don't know if you guys watch the fund accounts, but the courts has specific computer funds. The clerk gets 80% of those collections. The court gets 20%. We share our IT person that we pay for that exclusively from the computer funds because he does work exclusive for computers. And this position would equally be someone that is doing work exclusive for, that is from the computer funds or permissible. And once the funds wouldn't be available or the work would be completed, then the position would be done. And I wanted to make sure that it's
outside contract, it's just...
No, I don't go into outside contracting.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments?
I did get a legal opinion from Caroline, from the law director's office, that said I am permitted to use the computer fund for this purpose. Just so you know, in case you're wondering.
A motion on the floor by Curtis Johnson.
Second.
Second by Alex Roletta. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Best wishes.
Thank you very much. And anytime you would like to come up and just look at what we're doing up there, feel free to call me and I'll give you a little tour. Thanks.
Thank you. The next item on this evening's agenda is Ordinance 16-45. It's waiving the statutory residency requirement for the Director of Public Safety and approving maintenance of a residence outside the city limits of Newark, Ohio. Service Director David Rhodes is at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The mayor's held interviews. He found a candidate that he has appointed to the Director of Public Safety's position. Candidate lives in Heath, Ohio. Per a statutory residency requirement, we need a waiver of that, and that's what we're asking for tonight. The person he's selected is a 23-year veteran of the Newark Police Department, and Heath is a very close place, very in proximity. During my time on council, we did that for Mayor Bain, and as well as we did that for Mayor Diebold. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it up to any questions or comments from anybody on this committee regarding this ordinance this evening. Does anyone have anything?
Mr. Chair?
Doug, go ahead.
I guess it states in here that it would impose great personal hardship. Can we expound upon what that hardship is?
Where are you reading that, Doug?
In one of the whereases?
Well, I think the hardship, if you're talking about the moving hardship, probably the sale of a house and the purchase of a new house.
In this market, that's a hardship.
Do you have anything else, Doug?
Not at this moment. I think I will in a moment.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Alex Roletta, a second by D. Hall. Further questions, comments? Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, why are we deviating from the legislation that requires a person reside in the city of Newark? And I mean, I'm reading these whereases, but that's just, I mean, there's things written down here, but that's not telling me, for what purpose are we wanting to waive it when there's a reason why we want, in particular, the safety and service director to reside within the city limits of Newark? So
During the interview process, this particular candidate rose to the top, and we felt that he would be the best candidate to serve with the mayor's team.
Okay. I really don't feel comfortable without knowing the individual. I'd like to speak to the individual. And at this point, I'd like to offer a motion to table until such a time when I have the opportunity to speak with the individual and also set up meetings with other individuals on council.
Okay, there's a motion to table to a date uncertain. Would that be correct, Doug?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second for this motion? I believe that, if a council person would like to extend some time to gather some more information, I think that's more than fair. We've offered that and awarded that to other council members in the past. I would second that motion. So, that being said, there's a motion on the floor to table this to a date uncertain by Marmee and a second by Bub. And that the motion to table is not debatable, is that correct, Assistant Law Director?
That's correct.
Okay. With that being said, all those in favor of tabling this to a date uncertain signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion fails 3-2. That being said, we'll go back to the original ordinance of 16-45. Are there any further questions or comments regarding this?
Mr. Chairman, I still request an audience with the individual, and also along with others, I will organize a date and a time if that's possible, if he's willing to do that. And I would hope that he would be susceptible or acceptable to that.
I will make sure the clerk notes that for the record, and David, if you want to be a conduit in making that happen, that'd be great. So, with that being said, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.